Hi everyone, my name is Heather. I am the head facilitator and regional lead of Vancouver at DAREarts. DAREarts works with children and youth across Canada on leadership development skills through the arts. And my role here today is to share one of my favorite activities with you. That's Erasure Poetry. One of the concepts at DAREarts is something called handwords. The reason it's called handword is because there's often 5 words, one to go along with every finger. So it makes it really easy to remember the things that we're going to focus on today. So today with you, I'm going to talk about the 5 things I would love for us to explore. Number 1, expression. What is expression? Expression can be anything that has to do with how you express who you are in the world. So right now I've got light pink hair and I'm wearing a very bold floral print on this cardigan. That's how I want to express myself. I love color. Otherwise I wouldn't have pink hair. So I am expressing how I want other people to see me based on what I put on the outside. So what types of clothes you wear, what kind of music you listen to, whatever way you tap into your expression is how you want others to see you. So expression is our first handword of the day. Number 2 is reclaim. So right here is a reclaimed piece of furniture. What that means is this piece of furniture was made out of salvaged materials. It was materials that would have otherwise ended up in the landfill. This piece here was actually made by my dad. He found these materials in the junkyard and was able to build this beautiful cabinet out of these materials. So reclaim means taking something old or pre-existing and making it new, finding a new purpose for it. So today, during our exercise, we are going to be taking a piece of writing, a piece of a newspaper or a magazine or something that may already be on its way into the recycling bin and make it new, make it our own, express ourselves with this piece of material. The third word is poetry. Now, I used to not be a big fan of poetry because I thought that everything had to rhyme and I thought that everything had to be these really epic, like Shakespearean ballads, and that's not the case at all. The really nice thing about poetry is you can say so much in so few words. And with the exercise that we're going to be doing, we're going to be able to find a poem in words that already exist. So you don't actually need to do any writing. So it's a really fun and easy way to express yourself. The 4th word of the day is found art. So earlier I mentioned that you may be using materials that might be headed into the recycling bin. So found art is a way to utilize and take advantage of materials that you already have around your home. It might be something that's going in the recycling bin or in the garbage. Basically anything that you may be viewing as something that's not an art supply. So we will be using pre-existing text from a book, but you can use something like newspaper or magazine, something that you don't always consider to be an art supplies, and you find use for it. So found art. The last word of the day is perspective. I touched on this a little bit when I was talking about expression, which was our first handword, but perspective is the way that you view the world. Every single one of us has a very unique perspective because we are unique humans. My view of the world is very different than your view of the world based on the types of things that I've experienced in my life, the types of people that I have in my life, and basically everybody has a unique perspective and that should be celebrated. So within this exercise, I would love for you to get inspiration from your perspective and your worldview and your expression and all of our handwords today. I hope that they inspire you into creating a really beautiful erasure poetry. I hope that our handwords inspire you to create a really beautiful erasure poem. Let's get started. The supplies that you'll need today is a page from pre-existing text, a pen or pencil, and a Sharpie or a dark marker, preferably black, dark purple, or navy. The very first thing I recommend doing is scanning through the text that you have for any words that jump out. Use how you're feeling in the moment in order to create the poem. So maybe you're feeling particularly happy or excited, or maybe you feel really nervous. Channel those feelings that you have in the words that may be meaningful to you. Immediately, the word grass jumps out at me, as well as the word meadow. So I'm going to go ahead and circle them and continue scanning throughout the page. Once you have all of the words circled that stand out, just do a quick read through and see if it makes sense. When you've made sure that you're happy with all of your circular words, you'll take your Sharpie or your dark marker and carefully start blacking out the rest of the words. Be very careful not to cross out any of the words that you've circled. You can be really slow and careful during this first part. After, you can go ahead and make all of the marks a little bit darker. You can either leave the space between the lines blank, the same color of the page, or you can go ahead and black that out again. The nice thing about Erasure Poetry is that these poems that are coming out at you already exist in this text. It's just a matter of you uncovering them. The nice thing is that you can make it completely your own. It's all dependent on how you feel in the moment, as well as what text that you're using. Later, when I share my poem with you, I can talk a little bit about how I was feeling when I made it. But I'm being inspired by the nature that I can see as I'm in my kitchen looking out the window. I see the rain gently falling, and I see the sun trying to break through. So I'm gathering a lot of inspiration from the nature that I can see outside of my window. If you are using a Sharpie to black out the words, make sure that you aren't doing it on something that may cause some damage. So I do have a piece of paper underneath because the Sharpie does bleed through to the other side. So be mindful of that. If you have some scrap paper or some more text or newspaper, make sure that you put it down before you start working. When you're doing this, enjoy the sound that the Sharpie makes. Listen to it across the page. It's almost like you get into a rhythm when you're crossing the words out. And again, this first part, we're going really slow and carefully to make sure that we're not covering up any of the words that we've circled on accident. Okay. So I have all of the words covered up that I no longer need. Now that everything's covered up, I do want to go ahead and make sure that I'm covering up all of the pen marks. You will need to be a little bit careful in this part as well because you don't want to cover up any letters that you need. So go around the pen ever so gently. To make sure all of the marks are covered up. You can also do this with paint, with pastels. You could do a mixture of things. You could also cut out the words instead of blacking everything out for a different effect. It's also really interesting if you color everything in dark and then go ahead and design a pattern over top, or maybe you want to create imagery that goes along with your poem. Remember when I said to be careful when you're circling? I do want to show you that it does happen to me too. So now this word here isn't really usable because the G is mostly covered up. So I'm just going to go ahead and cover it up entirely. It's okay. I will just mean that I'm losing a word in my poem. Okay, now I have everything covered up. If you are wanting to just do a basic erasure poem, this is all you have to do. It doesn't take a lot of effort to highlight the words that are meaningful to you and black everything else out. Again, if you wanted to, you could paint over top of this, or if you have pencil crayons, we can design all around the black, which is something that I will do to show you what it could look like. I will read the poem to you now. My erasure poem. The meadow against the deep blue of the sky, a blackbird, sensitive, silent. The laughter of the children was round. Together, the springiness of heather, the crown of the land, great majesty, its own stillness, an oasis in the plain. So I actually found my name in this poem, which was an unexpected surprise. Heather is a type of flower that is kind of like a bush that has these tiny pink or purple flowers, and I quite like them. I was named after them. So it was a nice surprise to find my name in here. So I had to make sure that I had my name incorporated into the poem. You can basically do any type of poem based on how you're feeling when you're making this. So again, I was really inspired by what was happening outside. We have a woodpecker that comes and visits our yard, and it pecks at the wood in our sun patio. So I could hear the woodpecker a little bit, I could hear the rain, I could see the sun trying to come out. You can see the brightness coming into my window, and I was just inspired by nature. So this text isn't about nature, but it had a lot of words that reminded me of nature, and so that's what my poem ended up being about. If you want to take it one step further, you can get some light colored pencil crayons or a light colored, I have a jelly roll. Because my erasure poem has a lot to do with nature, I think I'm going to go ahead and draw on a plant. So I'm just going to be really abstract with this. The nice thing about erasure poetry is it doesn't need to be perfect. You don't need to completely black out the words. You can leave little bits of pages. You want people to see that it was a pre-existing text, that it wasn't something that you just typed up and printed out. So I'm just going ahead and adding some leaves. Again, drawing on the inspiration of nature with my poem. You can go ahead and use the words as part of the image. Maybe you want to draw an image of what one of the words is. So I could have, instead of doing these plants with these pointed leaves, I could have actually drawn heather on here if I wanted to. Play around with lighter color texts on the blacked out text. It will add a really nice contrast. It will look completely different if you use different materials to hide the words. So if you use something like paint, you could play around with texture if you wanted to. Maybe you don't want to use markers and you want to use cut up paper to do a collaged effect around the words. That would look really cool as well. You may hear my cat meowing in the background. He also thinks that it's a good idea for you to experiment with what materials you have on hand. Okay, and now I'm just adding my signature dots. I often add this to pictures that I'm creating. It's just a way to add some whimsy to the image. Right, and there's my finished poem with the nature-based design behind it. Sometimes people will keep the pages in their books and will make an entire Erasure Poetry sketchbook out of the book. So that's another idea that you could do. If I wanted to, I could have kept this page in the book and then made it completely over. Have fun, play around with color, design, and texture, and you can make pretty much any type of... Now that we've finished our exercise, I would love to end by saying that you are a leader. So go ahead and tell yourself, I am a leader. You are a leader here. You are a leader at home. You are a leader online. And you are a leader in your communities. So take what we've learned today, bundle it all up, and share it with the world.